there was a row of chairs on the side to the wall, and I was sitting there, and this is a packed youth room. I was sitting there by myself, just by myself. And you know the saying of you could be surrounded by 100 people and feel so alone? I felt what I have felt for nearly all of my life, that really deep invisibility.
Let's go. Let's do rock, paper, scissors.
Ready?
Yes.
You can go this time. You can start.
Okay. Rock? I feel like you should probably go a little bit earlier. I don't know if we're on time.
I think we are on time. I think we're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah.
Rock, paper,
Yeah.
scissors.
Hell.
Okay. You won. You won.
Oh, yeah, shit.
You can do the intro.
Oh, no, puppies. The Daily Humans podcast welcomes you. I'm Ashley.
I'm Nina.
And hello. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday.
Hello.
Tomorrow is
Bonjour.
Monday. It is exciting. We're going to bring out some good energy for the start of the week because Sunday has a bad reputation, and so does Monday. So we're going to reverse that analogy and bring some fun energy into this Sunday. Hello.
Sunday. Yes. Hello.
Sunday. Let me like Sunday.
I love that. I love Sunday. Didn't you say there was also Monday?
Tuesday.
Monday, Sunday, Tuesday,
Wednesday. I don't say it like that. I don't go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but my grandparents do. Their parents did. I think it's just it's the time, a certain time that used it. But I definitely don't go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's Friday noon. It's Saturday, Sunday. What? Oh my gosh, that song. See how things just pop into my head?
Yeah.
It doesn't take me a lot with music. It really doesn't. I haven't heard a song. I hadn't heard a song in so long. Katy Perry and Timbaland, If We Meet Again. Do you remember that song?
I literally have it on my playlist. I listen to it all the time.
Boss.
Yeah.
You know you're a real good one when you have a good music playlist. Yep. This is also one of the reasons
I love
why
that song. Yeah.
Gosh, I cannot believe it just randomly popped into my head. Were you listening to it? Did you listen to it anytime soon? I
would say maybe like within this week. Yeah, probably.
You telepathically sent it to me, didn't you?
Maybe.
Yeah, you did. The moment that she listens to it, it just pops into my head, I swear.
It's a
I'm just
beautiful
sitting there
song.
jamming out to it. Oh, it is. Oh, yeah. Timbaland he made such good music. We're just going to talk about music again. We're heading down that pathway again. Our love for music is strong. The force is with us when we think of music.
Yeah.
It is a strong bond that no one can break.
I just wish more than anything that we could actually include the songs in the podcast without copyright issues. You know, it would be so cool if we could like mix it in real quick as the song is like popping into your head just to see what's going on Ashley's frequency.
You never know. You never know the future, my friend.
Yes.
You never know. Yeah. Technology is so advanced. I wouldn't be surprised if like eventually I just think of a song and it just starts playing connected to my phone. Bam.
Yeah. A Neuralink.
Take that idea. Don't get any ideas.
Yeah, that's actually pretty petrifying when you think about it, that your brain can just link with some kind of like device and you can just hear stuff. But it would be nice because then you can smell things, good things, hopefully not bad things, but you know, like scent when people spray like perfumes, or if you're in nature and you have like flowers on a video and you can just smell it. I think I think movies do that. Some do, not here, but I'm not even going to get into that discussion with how movie theaters are where I'm living right now in northern Germany. It's very sad, but that's a whole entire different rant for a different episode. But movie theaters apparently have like synthetic popcorn smells in certain vents and stuff that they release, so that it can make people more hungry and yearn for
That's
popcorn.
why it's so strong.
Maybe, yeah.
Every time I've walked into a movie cinema, the strong smell of popcorn is just in
Mhm.
the air.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, it's kind of crafty. I'm not gonna lie. There's a part of me that's like, "How dare you?" But another part of me is like, "Oh, it's smart. It's
Yes.
smart." It's very creative of you. It's like walking in and being like, "How dare you?" You're very creative. All right, I'll give you that. You're creative and it's smart, but how dare you
Yeah.
manipulate us like that?
Capitalism at its finest, once again.
I don't know. I'm just sitting here like I kind of, you know, feel like it's kind of cool, but also like
Yeah.
you made me buy popcorn, fucker.
Yeah.
How dare you? Do you know what we're talking about today, though? We're waiting. What do you think we're doing? What is it? Oh, maybe next episode we'll talk about how great your style is and how beautiful. Definitely
Yes.
next episode. Absolutely. Do you want to announce what we're talking about, my friend?
Yes, sure, of course. So, this has been a topic that we've discussed a few times, I would say. It's come up here and there. It definitely is a running topic for the both of us individually in our own ways. And we want to bring it to you guys. And that is the unfortunate situation and happenstance. I've always wanted to use that word
What is
of
that word?
religious trauma. Happenstance actually means when things happen.
Happenstance. Happenstance.
I have no idea. Happenstance is a
I
word.
love it. Is it a real word, like in the
Yeah.
vocabulary, in the English dictionary?
Yes, I learned it in middle school.
She's teaching me. She's teaching me. Like, that's fabulous. Happenstance. I'm just gonna walk
Happenstance.
around. Are you the happenstance? Are you happenstance? Absolutely, I'm gonna ruin it. Ian will be
I
like,
love
I'm never
it.
using that word ever again.
Oh.
Sorry, my friend, continue.
Yeah, no, it's fine. No, but a lot of people have had unfortunate run-ins with that, experiences with that, whether it be in very I've been trying to practice this word canonical beliefs, Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Catholicism,
You're
um,
fine.
all of that, or even, of course, in the other aspects of spirituality with cults and stuff, and like really extremist sectors of it. And so we really wanted to talk about it because it's something that I've seen personally happen so often, and it needs to be discussed. It needs to be addressed, and it doesn't get talked about enough. I feel I don't really hear many people talking about religious trauma. It comes up here and there in occasion, but never as a real point. And so today we're going to delve into our experiences of it, our
Mm,
thoughts, our experiences, maybe even healing, things like that,
mhm.
and really open the discussion for everybody out there or anybody out there who has gone through the same thing, and hopefully make this a safe space. Because again, we're here to talk not only about ourselves, but the daily lives of humans, the Daily Humans podcast. That's where we're at. That's who we are. So, yes, join us. Let's sit down. And I'm not going to say let's dive in because I said that last time. And Aquaman and Poseidon, they want to have a little bit of space. So,
Bring the thunder, bring the rain, bring yourselves to the game. Poseidon, you mentioned Poseidon, and I was like, oh yes. Hello.
also, by the way, can I just say this real quick?
Yeah.
I said in that episode that you would be Ariel's stepmom. So I looked it up after the fact. And Poseidon is the father of Triton, and Triton is the father of Ariel. So you would be actually Ariel's step grandmother. Just had to clarify for anybody out there who was going to listen to that episode. And it's like, no, Poseidon's not the father of Ariel. No, he's her grandfather. Sorry, I just had to like reveal that truth real quick.
You have nothing to apologize for. I wholeheartedly withdraw my application to Poseidon as fellow partnership. I am rebuking and divorce and separation and refund. I am
30
not
days.
a grandma. Not
Yeah,
no, 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 no.
oh, 30-day money back guarantee.
Yep.
Annulment.
I brought the warranty for a reason. I brought it for a reason. Yep. It was smart. Yep. Zeus is the one that gave me the warranty, so he knew. So I'm going to go straight to Zeus now.
Yeah. That's the man. Zeus is the man.
I love
It's the
water
homie.
though, so that hurts me. I'm just going to have to swim in the sea without Poseidon.
Yeah.
That's funny. Thank you for telling. No, actually, that's hilarious. Thank you for telling me.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And as a little disclaimer, before we begin, and you know, a little boundary as well. We are the Daily Humans podcast, but we definitely don't know everything. Just to state that also.
Yeah.
And another thing too is that our experiences are our experiences. Our stories are our stories. We are not placing a little heinous stamp on what we're going to be talking about and the topic that this is about, essentially. This is what we've been through. This is our feelings. This is our experiences. And even so, this is where we stand with our beliefs and our thoughts. So, boundary, it's such emotion. And there's no refund. There's no warranty. There's no expiration date. This is what it is. You feel the wall. That is the wall. That is the boundary wall. Kumbaya.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We say everything with respect, obviously. People will have different experiences, even within trauma, but these are ours. And we just wanted to share just in case it can be a healing experience or that's the thing. That's something I do have to say. I did not even know religious trauma was real. Did not even know that it existed until I saw somebody that talked about it on YouTube. And I was like, wait, that's a thing? I thought this was just me. I had no idea this was a trauma. This is something that somebody was going through. And that's why I brought the idea up to Ashley a long, long time ago, because I was like, if that was the first time that I heard about it, which was last year, how many other people have not heard about it? You know? So we're opening the discussion. Yes.
Yeah. Same. Didn't hear about it until TikTok, and I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense, essentially. It's trauma, but it's come from, religion, a certain religious group, potentially. But even with what you said with the respect thing, Nina, like someone else's version of respect is going to be different to yours and mine. So
that's true.
if the boundary is just in place in realizing that our story is ours. This is what we've been through. We didn't ask for it. It happened, and we have every right to share it, just like the rest of you do. So
yes,
my back's a bit sore. It's the scoliosis 101. So don't mind me if I'm moving around a lot. I'm thinking of how to start this. So back in the 18th century, I joined a cult. No, I'm kidding. No. I guess when the journey started for me as being called a born-again Christian, as the name goes, was back in high school. It was probably like year 7 or no. I actually think it was around year 8. Year 7 or year 8 was one of them, where the school was just, the conversation about this church that was nearby was being conversated about, and people that were attending the high school were going to the church, so they were advocating for it. Pretty sure they made flyers and stuff as well, going around and just talking to whoever they could about this place. And the group that I was in, some of us had decided to try it out, and we did. We went to one Sunday session, night session. They had morning and night sessions. We went to a night session, and it was definitely interesting for the first time. And as a teenager too, may I just say, one of our reasons was going was for community, just to meet other people and have a social session kind of thing. So we ended up going to Bible studies on Wednesdays as well. And that was definitely interesting too. Bible sessions and then community afterwards in the youth hall kind of thing. It was the whole, some of you know how this goes, youth excursions and youth events. We did stuff like that, going to Luna Park, going bowling. Some of the youth leaders would take you out to certain places, one of them took me shopping once. We went shopping at like clothes shopping and stuff. So that was the whole starting process. I got baptized 2 weeks in from attending this church, just 2 weeks in. And I just want to say too, I absolutely had no idea what I was doing. I really did not. I had no awareness on Christianity, and I had no understanding enough, I'd say. The one thing that I knew is that about God and Jesus and prayers and speaking in tongues, because they would do that in the church. Yeah. But that I really did not, I still did not. I remember hearing it and I did not understand it. What is speaking tongues, Nina? Like, what's the representation of that?
Honestly, from everything that I've seen currently being discussed with that is that it's definitely bordering on manipulation. It's bordering on extremism as well, because it's like it seems like people are trying to portray something that isn't really happening, but they just want to make it seem like it is. And
Yeah.
I don't know, most people today are discussing it as a negative thing, that if you see it, kind of like back out of there, because it's not typically good.
It didn't give a sense of goodness to standing there listening to it. It didn't have a kind of energy of acceptance or connection, as I guess what they're trying to display it as, like a connection to a higher power kind of thing, to God per se.
Right.
It didn't give me that vibe as a teenager. I was standing there thinking to myself, what is happening right now? Why is this happening? And how do you even speak this in general?
Right.
And I think the depiction was that you had to be really connected to speak the language, to speak
Mhm.
in tongues. And then if you weren't connected, then you need to assess why. Kind of like you're the problem kind of thing was the
Wow.
analogy depicted. So anyway, I never got to that point. I would just stay in silence as standing in the church and listening to this happen. I was very back and forth attending. I don't think I know my heart wasn't in it fully, but at that time, in the state that I was in and what was going on in my own life and what I was seeking unconsciously, it was a place that I thought would provide me with what I needed at that time. Community, acceptance, friendship, appreciation, kindness, the things that I didn't know, I know now, but not back then, that I was really desiring, and I was in dire need of it, honestly. So I stayed mostly, and I went now and then, and tried really hard to fit in and to find my place in this church, but I never could. I never could. There was
Mhm.
always this feeling of no matter what I do, getting baptized, you know, going up, and because it wasn't at the end. There were some points where they would offer, like, you'd have the certain people stand up on the altar, and you'd go up and they'd
Mhm.
pray over you for whatever issue you have. You'd whisper
Mhm.
it in their ear and they'd pray over you. I'd be a part of it as much as I could, joining youth
Mhm.
group, Bible study. But there was always this disconnection to this environment. Like, I was never fully into it. I just wanted a place to be accepted in
Right.
truth. But as the time progressed, I became more isolated and lonely, because the thing too is the youth leaders, preach an inclusion kind of space when it comes to discussing certain topics, especially life topics. But at the same time, when presented with life and the reality of life, I don't think that they were in a qualified position to be able to have these kind of conversations that validate the reality as well as faith, you know? And I'm saying this now, but back then it was very difficult because there was so much going on in my own life. And I was in a really, really bad place and had been for quite a long time. And without even knowing what that even was, I just wanted someone to hear me. So trusting a youth leader to sit down and say, this is what's happened. And then that youth leader, as one example, did not speak to me at all for the rest of my time there. They did not come near me. They wanted nothing to do with me. They stayed away. They kept their distance. So except for being what you preached to be, it was the complete opposite. And that was devastating.
Yeah.
For that teenage version of myself.
Yeah.
Absolutely devastating to actually attempt to open up, attempt for the first time, honestly, to open up to someone.
Yeah.
In a very small increment too.
Right.
And to be met with the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And as time progressed, it got lonelier and lonelier. Less people talked to me, less people wanted to be around me. It was such an isolation. And the trauma of that was so triggering. And the experience was becoming more and more daunting in an unsafe space, essentially. And the other thing too is that I knew about anxiety and depression. I had a very small idea of it because I was diagnosed with it when I was around 11 or 12. And I would hear conversations about it, about mental health, be referenced to a demonic possession. And seriously, the conversations were like, you have a demonic possession. This is linked to the devil. It's not mental health. And hearing that as well, so what, you think that's why you're staying away because there's some possession on Ashley and she's got some major issues that she needs to deal with, and it's pretty serious stuff. Just slowly isolate her away. And again, that's an assumption, but through the conversations about mental health, through the way that certain issues were presented and how they presented themselves in those matters, it was another added trauma that I had to heal from. And my last day, I remember my last day like it was yesterday. We were in the youth room. It was a very packed day. And I remember just sitting there in the youth room. There was a row of chairs on the side to the wall. And I was sitting there, and this is a packed youth room. And I was sitting there by myself, just by myself. And you know the saying of you can be surrounded by 100 people and feel so alone? I felt what I have felt for nearly all of my life. That really deep invisibility, that loneliness that eats you up on the inside, that really covers you with this feeling of I do not exist. And I do not exist, sort of thing. Like, it really hit me hard in that moment, looking around and thinking, this place depicted acceptance. This place depicted, that you have a place here. Love.
Yeah.
Depiction of love. Only if you fit into our comfort bubble.
Right.
If you depict anything that we don't know about, that we're uncomfortable with, that we have no awareness on, it's isolation. I don't want to be around you because I can't conversate with you. I'm not comfortable being around you. And that wasn't just within this space either. Other people that don't identify as Christianity display this too. Like, it's a society thing. But in a space that really depicts itself, that did depict itself as inviting everyone in, come in. If you have a problem, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, whatever problem you have, come in and we will fix it. We will help you. Yeah, that was false advertising. I want a refund.
Yeah.
But
It's terrible.
it definitely was. It was a very, very traumatic experience. I remember walking out the doors, standing on the curve where the road was, and I just stood there and I just broke down. And it was nighttime too, mind you. And I thought, and I'm looking around and there's people outside too. And again, I just felt like I had Harry Potter's cloak around me, just an absolute, just invisible to the eye. No one would ever see me. No one would ever hear me. No one sees me. I walked down the street at night by myself. I didn't really give a crap, honestly, what happened to me at that point. When you've been made to feel this way for such a long time, and then you try to find a space that helps you feel at least something different, and then you don't find that. You think that there's no place on this earth that could ever provide that. Especially a place that really, like I said, depicts so much love. You know? I called my mother, she come and picked me up, and I never went back after that. And of course you get the, why aren't you coming back? Why aren't you coming back? You know? You don't come anymore. Why? Why aren't you attending? Do you even care? You wouldn't care about the reason that I'm not attending, because there was opportunities at the start to recognize that. There was no space for me anywhere anyway. You only accepted who you wanted to accept, like I said. I came to the conclusion in realizing that, yes, I understand that it's not Christianity as a whole, it's the people within it. I can validate that because people have had conversations that, labeling Christianity as this, it's the people essentially. It was the people there that made it what it was, right? But I still have my disagreements with a lot of the values, and I can't relate. Honestly, I can't relate to a lot of the values and a lot of the beliefs, and that's my journey, and that's my beliefs, and that's my system. But I definitely advocate that if you're going to advocate a space of acceptance, but you discriminate and you segregate, you push people away if they display anything that you are unfamiliar with or uncomfortable with, but you put out that you're open, someone should sue you for false advertising. That's happened and I have to say this too, even in the spiritual community, this has happened. May I just say, I have gone to a group before and I've told the story to Nina because I was bawling my eyes out because it was really triggering. I went to a spiritual group, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? It was around then. And I walked in and sat down and I was nervous, definitely nervous, but I was like, it was such a difficult year. I needed this. I needed a space where I could just find some sense of healing. Again, isn't that funny? I just go through the learning lesson again. So I went to this space and it was the complete opposite of what the advertisement and the depiction of this space is meant to be.
Right.
There was one person there, and I can't put it on the organizer of the group, but there was one particular person there, and she was just not having my space. She was not having my energy. She was not having me at all. She glared at me for the entire time that I was there. And this was a group too where I was the only young one there. So it's funny too because there was one exercise where you had to throw this knitting ball, and with the how do I explain it? You'd have to throw it to the person that you want to talk next, and like release the line. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but it was this exercise to sort of bring the group into a more comfortable setting with each other. And they chose me last every single time we did an exercise like this. Every time.
That is unbelievable.
The ladies were picking each other and they're talking about their children, they're talking about their family life, their home life, and that's great, that's fine. And then they would definitely choose me last. And the other thing too is active listening. You see, I am someone that's very hyper aware and hyper vigilant of my environment, and I've had to be due to traumatic experiences, right? So I will definitely monitor behavior around. And yes, there's a point where it can get to where it's potentially not exactly what it is, but in that state, in that certain position, the ladies were listening to each other and they were actively listening to each other. And then I'd start speaking, and it's like oh, switch off. Oh, participate in other different areas of this room. It was very interesting witnessing, I guess, in a way, potentially an age discrimination or well, she can't relate to this motherhood life. She can't relate to, a middle-aged woman kind of ideology thing, whatever the crap that they brought up within themselves, or potentially one particular person, but it was a conjoined experience. At the end of it, they stayed around, they were having coffees and talking, and I'm just sitting there and I thought, I could feel the emotion sitting on my chest and I can feel myself being triggered. And I'm like, I need to leave, otherwise I'm going to actually explode right here, right now. And I got up and I left, and I absolutely bawled in the car on the way home the entire time. And when you know how many times, and I think a lot of you can relate, the amount of times you screamed and bawled in your car driving back from places, I can't begin to explain to you the amount of times I've done that. Like, my Orion has seen me cry more than my psychologist. Truly.
Yeah.
I have screamed in my car. I have yelled in my car. I have banged on the wheel a million times in anger and frustration because I can't wrap my head around, and I couldn't wrap my head around back then. Why? So it's also spiritual spaces as well. It's wherever human beings are. Let's say it like that. Whatever human beings connect themselves to, wherever they are, they can say welcome, welcome, welcome. But it really depends on their own comfort zones, depends on their own mindsets, their psychology. It depends, because you could be a trigger for them. You could show up and your light could be something that they are unaware of, and they don't know how to react to it. There's many different layers to it, but essentially in the Christian space of it, I do not, I never related to the Christian, like the born again Christian label personally. I used it, but I never fully related to it. So I think the greatest thing was relinquishing that and letting go of any kind of names and labels and just figuring out what I wanted, not what everyone else wanted and everyone else was telling me to be and what to do. Relinquishing it was great. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I'm so proud of you for having the courage to get up and walk away in both spaces, being in that community meeting with the spiritual group and then as well in a church, because that is something that I'm still learning within myself, that you can get up and walk away if it's not serving you, if you're feeling suppressed or oppressed by something. And that takes so much courage. And when you're already in that kind of a space where you're that emotional and you feel so abandoned and ignored and, like you said, invisible, it is the hardest thing in the world to get up and say, no, I'm walking away from here. I can't do this anymore. And I want you to know how proud of yourself you need to be and should be for doing that for you, because there was a part within yourself that recognized, I don't deserve this. I don't need with this. I can't actually walk up and walk out, because it's something, like I said, I probably would need in that space. But I don't know. I still feel that way personally in my current day life, that I have a hard time just being like, you know what? No, getting up and leaving. Cause I think it's such a power move, and I'm so proud of you. But at the same time, I'm just so sorry that you had to experience something like that, because it is, like you said, when you advertise yourself to be a place where, I've seen a lot of churches say this, we're home. We're home for everybody. You don't have a place in this world. They're so judgmental, and the world is the way that it is. It's broken, but we're home. You're safe here. And again, I preface this, it's not every church, but it's a lot. I've seen it myself. And then you walk into that space and you get treated that way. You said that it's not labeling all Christianity this way. And I will get to my part in that as well with my story in a sec, but it is unfortunate that you see so many people fall into that line, when you just there's a bad rep when it comes to Christians, honestly. And I've seen people in Christian communities talk about this as well. So don't come at me. But even if you do, I'm willing to back it up and fight for it because it's the truth. There's just a lot of judgmental mindsets that's there. And I've heard a podcast a little while ago that was talking about just how people love to control. And we've mentioned this a lot as well. It is so, I think for me personally, disgusting when you are supposed to be a space or an environment that's like, we're here to serve people, we're here to serve our community, we're here to create community and safety and as one people, regardless of where that is. And then you use people's information against them because I've heard this quite a few times as well. You say something in the confidence of a person and then it gets spread around the whole community and now everybody knows. And it's not okay. It frustrates me. And it just, to go back to what I was trying to say, the fact that you would take vulnerable people that go into your space. This does not just mean in religious spaces, it can also be spiritual, but it most likely always is in some kind of mentor. I can teach you something. This is a safe space. This is a community setting. Are you okay? If there's anything I can do, please let me know, okay? I wish I could give you a hug. Yeah.
I think when I'm sure many of you know what it's like to feel invisible.
Yeah. It's okay.
And I can't even speak. It's also the fact that just to preferences as well, because recently it popped up into my head and it just pissed me off.
Mm-hmm.
There was one experience where someone that I went to that church with popped up in my inbox because I'd started posting about spirituality and yoga and all of that. And this person pops up and goes, it says something like, have you steered that far away from your pathway and now you're choosing this? Your life would be better if you reverted back to Christianity. Mm. And at that time, I had to get someone else to tell me how to respond because I was so angry. And now, when it pops up into my head, I think to myself, I should have responded exactly how I wanted to, because the audacity for anyone to come into my inbox and tell me that my life would be better if I reverted back to the pathway that they're on. Yet I was doing so good. I had come so far. That person would have no idea what it has taken for me to be here, to get here. They have no idea what it has taken. Yeah. And it was, I just thought they wouldn't care, because if you can jump into my inbox and say this, you don't give a shit. You don't care about what it took. All you see is something that you resemble as demonic. Yoga is demonic. Reiki is demonic. That's what you see. Not the fact of how you've been following my page for so long. My progress, you've seen it. And this is your conclusion. You didn't give a shit about me. You gave a shit that I was no longer conforming to how you validated my space. You only validated my space when it was conforming to that pathway. And that's what a lot of people did. They only validated my space when it was conforming to what they wanted me to conform in.
Yeah.
And when it wasn't, goodbye.
Yeah.
You're done. Leave you be. It was never a case of, are you okay? How are you doing? How are you progressing? It was never about that. It was never about that. And that's with a lot of people too. It's frustrating because the hurt from not even just this, but just all the years of not being heard, seen, and validated. It's why I advocate for it a lot.
Yeah.
You will constantly hear me advocate for it because the damage that it has done and the hurt that I feel and the things that I'm still healing from, it still does affect me to this day,
Yeah.
obviously. And I validate that hurt because as a teenager, you all know how young you all were when certain things happened and what that felt like being put through that at such a young age. When you're a teenager and no one sees you, no one can validate you and hear you when you're screaming amongst the crowd that you're hurting, when you're telling people that you're hurting, and no one can actually step into the space and be anything. They immediately turn away and run. They want nothing to do with it, or they don't understand, or they tell you, yeah, you'll be fine. Like they conform to what they know, or they don't. They just walk away. The continuation of that is it's psychologically damaging, honestly.
Yeah,
It's very traumatic.
it is. It
Yeah.
absolutely is. It's horrifying, and I see it happening on such a large scale. Like somebody that I can mention now that I personally am just so, I don't know if the word is frustrated, but there's a lot of anger there for me. A really big person that was, if you're in the podcast scene and the social media scene, I'm sure you've all been familiar with the persona of Jay Shetty. And
Mm.
that is not in the religious context. He used his persona as a spiritual person to lead people into contracts, deals, services meant to help people, and then just got money out of it and misled people, gave false information. And that has never to this day yet been addressed. And it's something that shocked me because at the time, I mean, I kind of ventured a little bit off of his podcast prior, but I was like, why would you do that? I don't understand that. And it opened the discussion for me a long time ago where it's like, why do people want to take advantage of emotionally, mentally, spiritually vulnerable people that are seeking help, seeking community, seeking some kind of understanding and placement in the world? And I feel like that is so often reflected in these spiritual slash religious spaces. But when it comes to spiritual religion, in specific, it is something that, like you've seen Ashley, how she's responded, it, and how I've seen so many people respond. You just break down in tears because that when you go to these spaces, you 99% of the time go there because there is a part of you that doesn't feel okay with whatever is going on in your life. You're seeking community, you're seeking to be around people who can be friends, be close people, mentors, people you can go to for advice that have some kind of safety there for you because that's what's being advertised. And as I wanted to say earlier, the most disgusting thing for me is when people take that vulnerability and then abuse it, and not just mentally or physically abuse it, because that happens way too often than we would even like to address in society, and that is still not being addressed properly, but spiritually. And when you break a person spiritually, when you traumatize a person spiritually, I am willing to say that all types of trauma are something that you have to spend majority of your life overcoming. It is possible, obviously, with help and nice people around you that love you and make you feel safe and heard and all of that. But at the same time, when you spiritually break a person, that is on a whole other level, in my opinion. It can be overcome, but it is something that is going to be a lifelong thing and going to be a lifelong trigger. When certain words come up, or sentences, or thought patterns, or ideologies, things like that, it can follow you. And man, when it comes to me personally, in my experience with otherness, or just what else is out there rather than just the physical things we see. When I was young, My mom always said to me growing up that you get to decide whatever it is that you want to believe in. I will never push you to be in one thing or the other. However, as a kid, in one way or another, I got enrolled into this school, and I found out years and years later as an adult that it was a Catholic school, which I wasn't aware of at the time, but made perfect sense because the things I've experienced in that school were horrifying. And this was in Germany. This was late 90s, early 2000s. So a lot of people who have been in church communities and probably are aware of trauma and religious trauma, that was kind of where I would say things have maybe gotten a little bit better on that scene. But back then, people went wild with a lot of different things. Like Ashley said, speaking in tongues, punishing people,
Mm.
ousting people, being really brutal with the way that they went about dealing with being different. And what I experienced was I was a child, I think it was 6, 7 years old. This was a school where they were still beating children if they did not listen. I had very, very strict teachers, all of that, but we had religious classes. And that was something that I found peculiar in my school because not only did we have religious classes, but you could not opt out of them. You have to go. Otherwise, if you don't go, 50% of your grade will tank as a whole. And the only way you can get out, and this is the truly the only way, was if you were Muslim. And that was it. And clearly enough to say there weren't a lot of Muslim students back then in my school at that time. But I do believe the school probably had some flack with discrimination, things like that. And that's why they made that the only thing, the only way to opt out of those classes. But I was annoyed because I went to my mom that day. We got the papers at school and I was like, Mom, I'm not really vibing with these classes. I don't really want to go. Is there any way you can speak to somebody to, I don't know, figure this out? And she's like, there's nothing I can do. It's either your grades tank or you go. And my mom's like, don't let it affect you too much if possible. So I was like, okay, fine. There clearly seems to be no other way that I can get out of these classes. So let's just go. And I went and as a kid, as a student in general, I often looked out the window while listening to my teachers teach because that's how I learned. I was like absorbing nature and then hearing what the teacher had to say. But obviously, that was marked as not paying attention. I got flack for it. It was this whole thing. But sitting in those classes and I don't know what it was in particular, but I just had this very uneasy feeling the entire time sitting there. There wasn't anything that was taught in specific that was at that time with the age that I was strange or extreme, but it was just the fact that when I walked out of those classes, when they were done, and I saw the students there that were Muslim and couldn't and wouldn't go in. Obviously, I'm glad that they didn't have to. But I had I couldn't describe what the word is or what the feeling was, but it felt wrong. There was something wrong about this happening. Because I'm like, why is the only way that you cannot attend these classes be that one point? What if you believed in something different? What if you were just not wanting to do them? What if you were not in a space where you could absorb that type of information? But the thing that I learned, they want to get you young. And this is
Mm.
typically what a lot of abusive institutions do. They want to get you young so that you
Yeah.
don't really have a lot of opportunities to question what you're being taught. But back then I was very opinionated and very questioning of everything anyway. So they ran straight out of luck, honestly.
Mm.
When it comes to me, they went out of luck because I question everything. I was like, why? I was a why child. I think I mentioned
Good.
this in a podcast prior.
Good.
Good, yeah, I agree. But I remember asking the teacher one time something, and it was the same question that I think a lot of the kids asked with Mary and conceiving a child. And I was like, there's something I'm not feeling quite right being here. And long story short, I had to leave that school due to very extreme bullying going on due to another classmate. But for me at that time, with everything that was kind of projected onto me in that time during school, then fast forwarding to me having moved to America, I think it was like 9, 10 years old back then, I kind of saw, this is, I would say, mid 2000s, the extremism that came with Christianity in the States, which
Mm.
I don't know if I can say compares to Europe. I feel like Europe has its own way of dealing with religious beliefs, but America to me kind of took everything and amped it up to 5 billion.
You can
And
tell.
it's just, it was very bad. There was a church at the
Mm.
time that was in the news, that was like one of those end of day churches, cults type of thing, very extremist, very multiple
Mm.
children. You never leave the community. If you do, you get harassed for the end of your life, till the end of your life. And seeing that, seeing how people went about LGBTQIA people, just the projections, you're going to go to hell, you're going to die, you have to do this,
Yeah.
that constantly being projected to you as a young child. I was still young at the time. Then having had that experience in school where I was forced to do something I did not feel comfortable doing, in some way, shape, or form, it started to have or to leave a trauma in me, to the point where all I was seeing was the negative sides of Christianity. And that what's the word that I'm looking for? It just kind of snowballed into me believing all Christians were like that. It took me a long time
Mm.
to get out of that mindset. But to me, I kind of knocked it off at that point in time. I was just like, okay, no Christianity whatsoever. I think it was 14, 15. Because the thing was, I tried when I lived in the States, because I myself was bullied very, very severely. I kind of got to the point where my mental state was so bad and I was so suicidal that I was like, I need something. And everybody talks about this God. So let me figure it out. Let me try. Let me understand. So I got a Bible. You get it. You used to get it in the States for free. And I tried to read it. I don't know which version I had. It was definitely more of a angry depiction of God. And that kind
Mm.
of scarred me in and of itself, because I'm like, how can anybody believe in this when it's so violent and just anger and just seething? It's like, if you don't do this, you go to hell, and this is what God did, and this is what that did. And it just, I felt like I had a hole inside my chest, and I was trying my best to fill it with this belief, because if you believe, if you're a Christian, then everything will be perfect and fine, and you will be whole and pure and holy. And it was just this convolution. It
Mm.
just, I can't describe it to you, but I was trying to fill it with these pages and I felt nothing. And so I was like, okay, this book is not doing it for me. So let me research a bunch of other religions. And that's kind of how that started in me. That's how I later on became a Taoist for a little bit of time, until that got toxic for me. It just, for me, a big issue was, and still is, within certain sections of religion, is the lack of freedom to experience it yourself. It's
Mm.
always, for the most part, this is what you do, this is how to do it properly. If you don't do it this way, or you look different, or you believe in something different, it does not align with the Bible or with God, and therefore it cannot be of God. It's a sin. You're a sinner. We're all sinners. We're all going to die. You're going to go to hell, and you're going to
Yep.
live eternally in damnation.
In
And
the
I'm
pit
like,
full of fire.
yes, with all the murderers and torturers and terrible people on this planet, you're going to suffer in hell forever and burn. And it's
Yep.
just, that was what I was taught growing up. I
Mhm.
just heard the whole, oh, and don't get me started on the purity thing, being pure and what that meant,
Oh,
and just
Jesus.
purity culture. There were so many toxic aspects to churches growing up for me that it completely made me hateful. And spirituality came to me after Taoism. And to get real quick into Taoism, I got led into that due to one of the people that I really admire and look up to is Dr. Wayne Dyer. And he is somebody that is just, he was somebody that was absolutely incredible with his teachings. And so much of what I know today is from his books, his movies, his explanations, etc., seminars that he did with spirituality. And I thought I had to be Taoist because it was like, these are things that I really value. I value nature. I do believe that everything is cyclical and not on a here's the beginning and here's the end timeline. I feel like everything is constantly repeating and we need to work things out. But with Taoism, it quickly became toxic for me because it got to this whole point again where religion did prior with Christianity of everything is your fault. If you're having bad experiences, it's your fault because you manifested it. It's you who has to work it out. And I dropped it because it really came at a time where I had a lot of losses. I lost my father to cancer, and I just had a lot of things that I needed to work through. And this was not helping me. And I just kind of got to the point where I was like, I refuse to believe that whatever is on the other side of this existence is evil or wants to punish me or wants to harm me. And it's just out there to constantly show me that what I'm doing is wrong. I refuse to believe that because I don't believe that. I can't. I've seen so much beauty to life and I've seen so many serendipitous, well, quote unquote, serendipitous moments, but I can't. And even if that's the case, I can't choose to believe in something like that. I can't do it. I don't want to live my entire life in misery and waiting for death or preparing for my death. And I think a lot of people within extremist beliefs or groups or cults, whatever it may be, often within their life and within a very early on age have to prepare for their death. I think a lot of Christian groups do this as well, or I would say Abrahamic beliefs do this as well, where it's like you have to live a perfect life as a perfect human because of what comes after this life, because of the eternity that comes after. And you want to be in good standing with God. You don't want to die and be, having lived a bad life and having been a bad person because you're going to go to hell if you don't. And I refuse to believe it. It just got too much. It was too much pressure. I'm like, why is there so much pressure on me as a human being? I don't understand. If there is this God, right, ruling over all things, or this intelligence, this source, universe, whatever you want to call it, why is it so hell-bent on making me miserable and making me follow these rules when I truly believe in my heart of hearts, God has created, universe has created, source has created, the thing that we all come from, everybody in their own way for a reason. We're not supposed to all conform in one way, one road, and that's it. There's no other thing outside of that. I refuse to believe that. And spirituality came to me at a time when everything else failed. Honestly, it kind of showed me and led the way into making my own experiences with what's out there. And I've really attest spirituality to so much of my healing because without it, I would not be the person that I am today. I met the people that I met and they changed me, they made me better. And then spirituality took that and amped it up for like 1,000,000,000%. And what ended up happening was that I started to learn how to trust my intuition. I started to learn what it is to feel love, to let that in, to give love, to heal the shadow versions of myself, the traumatized versions of myself, child self, teenage self. There were so many different elements that I learned within spirituality. And for me and what I consumed in the spiritual realm or community was freedom. You do not have to look a certain way, believe a certain thing. There are very many different people here. And your journey is for you to take. It's your experience with source. It's your experience with the universe. It's your experience with God, whatever you want to describe it as, whatever you want to call it. I believe it's all the same thing. And it really started to heal me. And then last year, I kind of discovered, like I said, religious trauma and what that was. I identified that I had had it. And it was completely random. It was like a 2 a.m., one odd week where I was like, oh, this is religious trauma. Okay, I see what that is. And I kind of went on a deep dive then. I was like, okay, if this is trauma, then I have to heal it. I would like to heal it because I don't want to hang on to pain or something that I don't need to hang on to. If it's keeping me bound, and it did because I had a lot of judgment, I had a lot of resentment there towards Christianity and people who portrayed themselves as Christian. I was like, okay, let me look inward here. And the thing that spirituality taught me is that when you hate something, hate is a strong word, but I will use that word. If you despise, hate, have really deep resentment towards something, it's usually something within yourself there that needs to be addressed or is being reflected. So for me, a really big case of why I kind of disregarded Christianity as a whole was the judgment part. I was like, I can't stand the judgment. The judgment of people, if you're this person, you're gonna go to hell, or this is not right, or this is wrong. And it just I was like, where's the love in that? If
Mm.
God is love and love is God, where's the love in that? Because all you're doing is being judgmental. And so I really despised it. And that was a really big reason why I cut it off. I didn't entertain anything Christian for a long time. And so when I did this healing work, and I'm still going through it now, I kind of went back to the basics and I was like, okay, where do I start with this? Because I have no idea how to deal with religious trauma. I know most people go to therapists for that, and that's completely fine. But I wanted to see what it would be like if I tackled this on my own. And started for me, I'm going to say it was incredibly triggering with reading the Bible.
To be continued next Sunday.